What are the pros and cons of buying a second floor apartment in New York City? We'll demystify this topic in the following video. I'm Nick at Houseit. Visit houseit.com to save money when buying, selling, or renting real estate in New York City, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, or South Florida. So let's get started. So let's start with the pros. What are the advantages of buying a second floor apartment in New York City? Well, the primary advantage of going with a second floor apartment is the fact that you will most likely secure a much better deal than you otherwise would have by going with a higher floor unit. Another advantage to buying a second floor apartment is the matter of convenience. It is quite convenient to be able to just go outside your front door, go down one flight of stairs, and go in and out of your building. You don't have to engage in waiting for the elevator. You don't have to engage in small talk with people. And of course, the elevator is still there if you're in an elevator building, so you still will have that same convenience for yourself and for guests as you would with a higher floor. It just allows a lot more spontaneity in terms of your lifestyle, to not have to think about calling the elevator, waiting, probably checking your phone. You just don't have to do any of that. Open your door, go downstairs, go outside, go to the bodega, do what you need to do, come right back, and if you forget something, you can go out again, and it's quite convenient. Another advantage to buying a second floor apartment is that it does feel oftentimes like you're much more connected to the city. Now, most second floor apartments do have some degree of elevation, so you're never going to be right at eye level, with people on the street and so forth, but you'll still be able to hopefully look out the window. You can see people talking, you can see facial expressions. If it's raining, you'll see people's umbrellas. You can see the cars in the streets. So a lot of our buyers and clients that we work with oftentimes do really like this element of it, and they feel that if you get up too high in a building, while you might have more light and views and so forth, you'll actually lose that connection with the city, and you might feel a bit more detached than you would like. So we've gone over a few pros. Now let's get into the cons or negative aspects of buying a second floor apartment in New York City. Now, in our opinion, one of the most detrimental aspects of living on the second floor is the fact that you may have a commercial unit below you. Now, commercial units bring a great deal of uncertainty to your ownership because you never really know what's going to be below you. While today it could be an ice cream shop, a year or 5 years from now it could be a pizza parlor. So you never really know, and as a result, it's kind of hard to gauge the risk at the time you're actually buying. And furthermore, if the commercial tenant changes, you could potentially have differing levels of noise and odors and other sorts of problems which basically emanate into your apartment. Another downside to buying a second floor apartment is that you're just going to be closer to the source of rodents and vermin. They all come from the basement, from the ground floor, and they typically go upwards. So you're the first point of entry for these critters into the building. So obviously, this risk cannot be fully eradicated just by going to the third floor, fourth floor, fifth floor, or 12th floor. Rodents and vermin are everywhere in New York City. You can never completely avoid it. But nevertheless, on the second floor, you will have a higher likelihood of problems. Another risk with buying a second floor apartment in New York City is you have to deal with additional street noise and other sorts of distractions. Particularly late at night, you don't want to be hearing sirens, crazy people getting in fights, cars honking, people getting out of the bar and having existential arguments with their partners, things like that. But again, that being said, you're not going to fully eradicate this simply by buying on a fourth floor or fifth floor instead. That is just part of the fabric of New York City. You're going to have noises. You're always going to have sirens. And therefore, the main downside with being on the second floor is that it will be incrementally louder and more of a distraction than being on a slightly higher floor. Another negative aspect of buying a second floor apartment in New York City is potential safety issues. Now, obviously, you can never fully eradicate the risk of bad actors and harmful things occurring in your life. But of course, if you're on the second floor, you simply are a much more likely target for a bad actor who enters the building looking to commit a crime, cause mayhem, or steal, and so forth. They will enter the building either from the roof or from the ground floor, and they will go to the first available apartment that meets their eyes. This typically, in the case of an entry on the ground floor, results in it being some apartment on the second floor, which could potentially be your floor. But that being said, just because you're on the third floor or the fifth floor will never fully eradicate this risk. because oftentimes a bad actor will enter the building and they will just try to open every single door until they find one that is unlocked. But nevertheless, we do like to bring this up. If you are very focused on safety, there's no doubt about it that you will be safer on a higher floor, with the exception of the roof, because of the fact that people can potentially cross over buildings by way of the roof and actually enter through the stairwell to the roof. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking of either a second floor apartment or a penthouse top floor type of unit. One other con of buying a second floor apartment in New York City is that you will typically have less exposure, views, light, and so forth than you otherwise would being on a higher floor. However, that's not to say that second floor apartments don't have a lot of these types of features. Depending on the apartment, you may very well have southern exposure, and also in pre-war buildings and the likes, you could potentially have taller ceilings by way of being on the second floor, and that may actually lend itself to your apartment being brighter or feeling larger than a unit that's maybe a floor or 2 or 3 floors above you. So we hope you found this video to be helpful. We went over the pros and cons of buying a second floor apartment in New York City. If you are looking to buy, we can save you up to 2% and in some cases more here at Houseit through our Houseit Buyer Closing Credit Service. You can learn more and sign up by visiting houseit.com or send an email to team@houseit.com. I'm Nick at Houseit. We really appreciate you watching this video and we hope to have you as a subscriber to our channel. We'll see you on the next one.